Are you a person that always has to have a plan before you start a painting? What if I told you that the most exciting paintings happen when you listen to your intuitive side and trust your instincts? Today I want to share with you my 6 watercolor secrets for creating an instinctual seascape painting, and stick around to the end because I'm going to show you this one. All right, the first step is start with no plan at all or have a very loose idea. This is going to sound foo-foo-y, but you're gonna start with a feeling or a mood or maybe an idea. Maybe it's color. So what I'm going to have you do is ask yourself, do I want to make this painting feel energetic or am I feeling calm? What colors do I feel like using today? Maybe you're even wearing it right now. Am I inspired by a certain place? Mine obviously is Maine, and I absolutely love the Rocky Coast, so I'm always inspired by that, or nature. Number 2, I want you to trust the water, and I want you to use big, bold strokes. If you need to grab a brush that's larger than the ones that you normally use, that's a great way to start. So you're going to load your brush with plenty of water, plenty of pigment, and you're going to just let the colors kind of blend and bleed in together and just watch them. All right, so you're going to work wet into wet, and you're going to let the shapes kind of form organically. So instead of forcing the paint maybe to go in certain places, you're just going to let the paints kind of go where they want to go. So it's not a lot of overpainting. You want to let the water and the paints do most of the work for you. Number 3, react. Don't overthink. And then if you find something that you really like and it excites you, then go that route. Embrace it or emphasize it. Number 4, conventional tools or things that you haven't used before that's going to help you experiment and be a little bit more open. For today's painting, I'm actually using masking fluid for that. You could sprinkle a little salt for some texture. And then, of course, one of my very favorites is you can flick or you can splatter your paint. All right, number 5, let go of your perfection and enjoy the process. I think I might have said that before. No judgments. No judgments allowed. This is about fun. This is about play. Just sit back and more or less experience it rather than trying to control it. And I'm going to tell you that some parts of it are going to feel messy. They're going to feel uncomfortable, but I just want you to go with it because really that's where the magic happens. And it's always great if there's something that you don't like, you can lift it, you can layer over it, you can take it off with a tissue if it's still wet. So don't panic. And number 6 is stop when it feels right. Sometimes that's hard to determine, isn't it? But instinctual painting is about listening to your inner voice. So it's listening to yourself and not the rules. Even if you've been taught all kinds of stuff, just kind of toss them out the window today. You're just going to play. So I have to say, I've been teaching online classes for over, 10 years now. And I just released a new course, and it was so much fun. It's on palette knife painting, and I've been doing all this experimenting. So I decided I was going to keep going. And if you want to check out the palette knife course, I do have that now available on my website, and I'll give you the link down below. So if you love this style, you're going to love that too. All right, so this is what I'm starting with. I have masking fluid, and I'm using Monster Liquid Latex for this. Now this is much cheaper, and I have a video, you could check it out, where this is 2 years ago I started using this, and I haven't used anything else since. And the video just covers how much less expensive it is, and we tested out some other masking fluid. So I have a masking fluid bottle, a refiller. This is just basically a little plastic bottle, and I'm using my little funnels here. Now I will put a link down below for you. You can get these masking fluid bottles or ink bottles or craft bottles, glue bottles, whatever they're called, with a little topper, and it's got that little metal piece. And I think they come in sets of 2, and they actually have the little funnel with them, so you don't have to use if you have your kitchen funnel, which I don't repurpose this one anymore. I'm just going to fill the bottle up. We are going to dive into this. What is instinctualism in art? It's often an approach where the artist really relies heavily on intuition or emotion or spontaneous expression rather than deliberately planning out a painting or having these strict techniques that they're using. And it emphasizes creating on the subconsciousness, allowing raw emotion and more instinct to guide the process. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So this demo is an instinctual watercolor seascape, and using the masking fluid is a fun way to create that shape. You can see that you can get that real raw look. Now I do kind of want a thought process of water, sky, rocks down in there. So I just basically scribbled it in. So that's going to give me that base to start my painting with. Now, if you haven't used masking fluid before, you do want to wait for this to dry, and I will recommend that you let this dry naturally. I have done it before where I've taken a blow dryer to it, but sometimes it can really stick to the paper a little bit more. This actually, the Monster Latex did a pretty good job. Now, you do have to be careful with your masking fluid. If you have something called permanent masking fluid, take a look at your bottle. If it says permanent, that means you cannot remove it. So it's masking, but it doesn't come off. So I've had a number of students that accidentally purchased the permanent masking fluid. So make sure it doesn't say permanent. I've let that dry naturally. You can see it's like a rubbery texture on here, and we are ready to add some color to this one. Key to this one is really not overworking your painting when you're doing this, and making sure that you've got all different values of your colors in here. So you can pick any color, but if your colors all have the same value, it just makes the painting look flat. And let me just show you an example here. If you take an image and you photograph it on your iPhone and you take a look at it in black and white, you can tell if it seems flat. If there's not a lot of variation in your tones, you might have to have some darker pigments in there. So you're going to keep that in mind as you're painting some of these colors. So this is the fun part. This is where you get to use any color you want, dropping in color. Again, I'm trying to mimic, a sky, some rocks down here on the bottom, and maybe some blue water on the side here. Keeping it very basic, basically shaping this into 3 sections. I'm just going to use this wet into wet technique with a very soft blending to add my colors in here. Now let the colors work naturally. You want to try not to overwork it, and this is where your instincts kind of take over. So we had talked earlier about the values. So remember, when you have a lot of water, your pigments are not going to be as dark. I'm actually lifting that out, going to add a little bit more yellow back down in here. It is a little muddied, but that's okay. We're experimenting, we're playing, we're having fun. So I am trying to add in some darker pigments as this starts to dry. Now you can't do this once it gets beyond a certain point because then you'll get all of these blooms. So while it's wet and as it slowly starts to dry, you can start to add some more of those darker pigments or darker areas. And now I'm adding some salt to it. Again, I want a little bit of texture. I'm having fun with this. Sprinkling the salts, just kind of a way to create that natural texture in there. You want to sprinkle the salt while the paint is still damp, and that's going to create more of a natural texture for you. Remember, as it starts to dry, it's going to create some of those beautiful effects in your painting. So I've let that dry. I'm going to remove the salt and I'm removing the masking fluid. And then I'm going to start adding just a few little details. So I don't want to do too much. You can easily overwork it. And you can see once I remove that masking fluid, it reveals all those little highlights, very random little marks that we've created. Now I'm going to use that small brush. I'm going to add a few little details to this. I'm going to add a little bit of dry brushing. Again, I'm kind of picturing this as more rocks, and I've got like that beautiful yellow at the top where it's more of a burst of sunshine. Using the brush to the side, I can create some nice little dry brush techniques. I'm trying not to go over where I had added that salt just because that is my favorite place, my favorite spot, along with up at the top where I kind of envision some trees and that beautiful sunshine that's sparkling down through in the water. So remember, again, we talked about making sure you have enough values. This is where I'm going in with a little bit stronger pigment. So I'm using less water here, creating some darker values, darker tones in my painting. And it's really easy to do. All you got to do is just not add quite as much water. And when you do that, you're going to get a stronger pigment. And I am using my Rosa paints in this. This is actually my 2 paints that I've let dry into my palette. So you have a little bit more control when you're using your pan paints than when you're using your 2 paints coming out wet. So you do have to work it a little bit more. You might have to just kind of play around with how much water that you're using. And I think that's another great thing. If you are a beginner painting, that's a great way for you to learn your water and pigment ratios. So I advise my beginner painters not to use tube paint. I always suggest that you start with pans and learn your water to pigment ratio. I think that's very, very helpful. So we're going to add more details. I'm going to add a few more trees in here, and then I'm going to grab that gold because I'm obsessed with the gold. Now this gold is actually watercolor pigment, and you do add water to it. So I just scoop it out. I have a little container over here that I put my pigment, my dry pigments into, and then I add water to it. Now you do have to work the paint a little bit. This one actually, I reactivated. I didn't have to add any more pigment to this one. I was using it yesterday. So that's the other nice thing. Add water to it and voila, you've got it reactivated just like your other watercolors. And just like other watercolors, the more pigment you have and the less water, the more gold or liquid gold is going to appear. If you add more water to it, it's going to appear more lighter or less opaque. I like it really opaque because I like to make it very bright and bold. And the shimmer that this gets when you hit the light just right is absolutely amazing. So if you are a patron, just know that I have just posted the full tutorial in real time over in Patreon. I would love to have you over there. Join me. We do a lot of fun stuff and you're getting all of the behind the scenes kind of stuff. So sometimes it's pretty funny. And of course, all the stuff I do here on YouTube is free. So by becoming a patron and supporting me with just $5 a month, you help support this channel and all the freebie stuff that I am able to share with you. So using masking fluid is a fantastic way to create your painting without needing to plan everything out. So pair that with some organic textures, some touches of gold, and you can bring a seascape to life with depth and movement. So don't be afraid to experiment. Sometimes the best results come from letting watercolors just kind of do their thing. Thank you so much for joining me today. Like and subscribe if you like this type of content or instinctively in watercolor. Instinctively. That's a good word. Instinctively, not extinct. Instinct. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.